Hey guys, tonight we drift into the lush, vine-tangled remnants of a civilization that knew how to make stones sing. You're not just walking through ancient ruins, you're stepping into a living instrument, carefully carved and tuned over centuries. A place where voices of the wind, water, and ancestors seem to hum along the walls, whispering things you almost, but not quite understand. Of course, you probably won't survive this. Because you're already centuries late and the jungle doesn't care who you were. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I read them all. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself on the edge of a clearing, dusk bleeding gently across the canopy above. The air is thick with the scent of wet leaves and dust baked into the stone. Your footsteps crunch softly on white coral dust, odd, considering your hours inland from the sea. But then again, nothing about this place seems exactly where it should be. The temple rises in front of you, half swallowed by strangler figs and hummingbirds flitting like anxious spirits. It's not towering like you imagine Maya pyramids to be, it's low, broad, worn smooth at the edges, as though time itself had been trying to polish it into silence. But there's something else, something not silent. You freeze, there it is again. Not a bird, not whined through leaves. It's singing, but no voices, no drums, just a faint, continuous wail that seems to seep out of the stone steps like a conscious cry filtered through stone. You crouch, press your ear to the stair, and realize the sound isn't constant, it shifts with every breeze. The temple is singing with the wind. You rise slowly and begin ascending the steps, trailing your fingers along the mossy wall. The surfaces are studded with spiral-shaped inlays, conch shells weathered smooth, embedded neatly between glyphs. One near your feet catches your eye. Its center is chipped, exposing a hollow spiral like the throat of some long-forgotten singer. You crouch to examine it and feel a chill, not from fear but recognition. The wind snakes through a crack in the wall behind it, and the shell resonates like a flute struck from below. You stay there, listening. The sound shifts ever so slightly depending on your breath, your stance, even your heartbeat. You test it, inhale deeply, then exhale slowly across the chipped lip of the shell. It moans like something alive. You can't help but smile. These weren't decorations. They were instruments carefully positioned for harmony, for voice. Not human voice exactly, but something older. And now that you're tuned in, you hear more. Faint harmonics from the upper walls, like high-pitched echoes buried in the stone. As if the entire temple were some kind of resonating chamber, you glance up. The sky is deepening into velvet. Stars blink into place overhead like forgotten glyphs. And still the temple hums around you. A thought creeps in, an odd one, but you let it linger. What if this place wasn't just a temple? What if it was a memory that sings back? You notice something strange etched into the next step, a small glyph resembling a hand cupping a spiral. A symbol for listen, perhaps, or echo. Historians are still debating that one. Some say it was a command. Others say it was an invitation. You accept it either way. As you sit on the step beside the shell, you hum softly to yourself, a random note, a child's guess. The shell responds, and suddenly you're not in the present anymore. You're just a breath on the wind. The sound guides you. That soft moaning wind through the shell wasn't just a trick of acoustics, it was a map. You can feel it pulling you along the corridor behind the main stair, where vines part naturally as if someone or something frequently moves through here. You duck into the shadows. The stone passage narrows as you descend, your hand tracing cool, damp limestone on either side. It smells of crushed moss and salt, oddly enough. There's no torchlight, but the faint glow of lichen on the ceiling helps your eyes adjust. You pause and whisper a word just to test the air. It answers back. Your voice doesn't echo like you expect. Instead, it bounces softly between the walls in a spiraling pattern, delayed, fragmented, rearranged, until it sounds like someone else is mimicking you half a second behind. You whisper again, this time nonsense syllables. The corridor responds, overlapping your voice with something close to a laugh. It's not creepy, just strange, like the space itself wants to talk. You walk forward slowly, dragging your fingers across a groove etched into the wall. It's not random, someone carved a repeating line of waveforms. Peaks and dips, symmetrical in places, chaotic in others. Historians haven't agreed whether these are ceremonial designs or literal acoustic blueprints, but they appear too precise to be decorative. You round a corner and gasp, nearly slipping. The tunnel opens into a small rotunda half collapsed on one side, but the acoustics sharpen. Your breath echoes oddly here, not as one sound but many, like a chorus of yourself. You shuffle a step forward and the floor chirps faintly like pressure-triggered tones built into the flagstones. You take another step, a lower note, another higher. It's a scale, you're walking on a musical instrument. Each stone emits a different note, barely audible to human ears but enough that your skin picks up the vibration. You can feel the tone in your knees, like the low pulse of a speaker you're too close to. It would be funny if it weren't so beautiful. You think of modern malls with musical stairs, and wonder if we're all just repeating tricks invented thousands of years ago, only louder and with worse taste in architecture. In this place, every sound has a place, a role, a rhythm. You crouch and notice an odd shape carved near your foot, an ear inside a spiral, the same motif you saw upstairs but with a subtle difference. A jagged line splits it in two. You hum again, and from somewhere above, the shell you discovered earlier hums back. The wind must still be moving through it. The whole structure is singing to itself, layer by layer. You follow the corridor left, deeper still, where the air grows warm and thick. The acoustics shift again, this time sharper, closer. Even the soft creak of your shoulders brushing the walls gets magnified, like someone dragging cloth through a microphone. Suddenly a tone, pure hollow humming. You freeze. You didn't make that sound, it came from behind you. A single note perfectly in tune, held in the air like a breath waiting to be claimed. You spin back, heart beating faster. Silence, you whisper. Hello. Silence, then a reply, not a word but a reverberation, like the tunnel saying hello back but slower and sadder. This place remembers sounds, you realize, maybe not like we do, not like a tape recorder, more like impressions, footsteps worn deep. Chants that once echoed here, now embedded like dust in the mortar. Some scholars argue these corridors were designed to replay old ceremonies, to literally echo ancestral voices back at you. Others say it's nonsense, that acoustics are just a coincidence, that the Maya didn't build for sound, only spectacle. But as you stand here, wrapped in layer after layer of your own voice bouncing gently off stone, you know that's not true. They built this to be heard long after they were gone. As you lean against the wall, your hand brushes over a new symbol, a spiral surrounded by tiny dots. You count them, 7. The Maya had many meanings for the number 7, planets, days, sacred directions. But in this context, you suspect it's simpler, 7 tones, 7 echoes, 7 chambers. You step forward again. The air sharpens, narrows, condenses. The walls here are carved into soft ripples, almost like the inside of a seashell. The space is humming with memory. And as you whisper once more, just a sigh, nothing more, you hear it again, this time unmistakably. The clay shell, far behind you, humming the same note in return. You emerge from the narrow corridor into a chamber partially collapsed on one side, dappled with shafts of sunlight filtering through the crumbled ceiling. Tree roots hang like streamers, dipping into the dust. A smell wafts up, dry clay, faintly metallic, tinged with something ancient and mineral-rich, like the inside of an old pot that still remembers fire. Your eye is drawn immediately to the altar in the corner, flat, low, surrounded by stone figurines arranged in a wide semicircle. But one figurine has toppled. Curious, you crouch and pick it up. It's small, maybe the size of your hand, a humanoid form with wide hips, a flat chest, and carved nostrils you can blow through. But the odd part, its mouth is open, not sculpted but hollow. The back of the head curves away like a flute chamber. You exhale gently into it and it lets out a soft, breathy note, almost like a sigh, not a toy, not a statue, a singer. The figurine is part whistle, part vessel. You examine the others, they're all similar, though each has slightly different holes in different places. One in the chest, one in the eyes, another where the spine would be. The Maya weren't just sculptors, they were sound engineers. Musicians of breath and earth. You blow gently into the broken one again. The sound is deeper this time, richer, a low, throaty purr like a content animal or a pleased spirit. You set it down and step toward the altar. Its top is painted, though most of the color has faded. You can make out blotches of red, maybe ochre or hematite. There's a circle surrounded by flames or feathers, and a figure at its center blowing into a conch shell with blue paint on their hands. You remember that motif from the corridor, that spiralier symbol again, this time beside a clay jar. The Maya sometimes buried instruments with the dead, but here it seems they built instruments to speak with them. You press your fingers to the altar's surface. It's warm, though the air is cool. The warmth pulses faintly like stone that remembers heat. You knock gently with your knuckles and realize something surprising: it's hollow. You slide your hand along the edge until your fingers dip into a groove. A tiny notch, a lid. You pause, glance around, and being a curious creature of questionable caution, lift it. Dust spills out first, then something more solid. A tiny figurine, nearly identical to the one you played earlier but with both arms intact. One hand cups the side of the mouth. The other is extended, holding what appears to be a small spiral shell. You pick it up. It's been carefully carved from clay, but the spiral is precise. A replica of a conch. There's even a hole at the narrow end. You raise it to your lips and blow gently. It sings, higher than the others, sharper, almost playful. You laugh quietly. What else can you do? You are, at this point, surrounded by whispering stones, singing dolls, and echoes that don't behave. Laughter is the only sane response. Then you notice something on the back of the figurine: carved glyphs. Faded but still visible. You can't read them, but you recognize one symbol repeated: a hand over a mouth, not silencing, more like offering. Some scholars suggest this meant the figure was a breath bearer, a ceremonial assistant who carried sound from the gods to the people. Others argue it was simply the symbol for a flute player. Some even claim it was a priestess role performed only during specific lunar alignments. No one really agrees, but as you hold the figurine, you feel its weight, its shape, its resonance, and you start to believe the Maya weren't just playing music for ceremony. They were trying to speak across layers of reality: time, space, life, and what lies after. You rest the figurine beside its siblings, arranging them in a gentle curve, facing the altar once more. You blow a soft note across each one in order: low, mid, high, sigh. The chamber breathes, and beneath your feet something shifts. A subtle pressure change, like a deep breath from the earth itself. It's probably just air from a collapsed tunnel, you tell yourself. Probably. Still, you tuck the clay replica, the one with the spiral shell, into your satchel, not to steal, just to carry, to see if it sings somewhere else. Oh, step outside into sudden warmth, blinking at the golden sky. The storm must have crept in while you were deep in the tunnels. Classic tropical theatrics. The clouds are bruised and full above, and before you even make it halfway across the plaza, fat drops of rain begin to fall. At first it's gentle, just a tapping on leaves and shoulders. But then it builds, as if the heavens remember something urgent. You duck under the eaves of the temple roof, where stone gargoyles carved like jaguars jut out over the walkway, and that's when you hear it, the song of the rain. Not the usual pitter-patter, no, this is tuned. The droplets hit the temple roof like fingers striking stretched hide, a low, rhythmic beat echoing across the courtyard. You tilt your head and realize the roof itself is sloped to guide water, not just to gutters but to certain sculpted inlets that form a pathway. A cascade of impact zones, each one slightly shallower or deeper than the last. Like a marimba for raindrops, it's not just functional, it's musical. You walk slowly under the shelter, hand tracing the slick stone gutter shaped like a snake's body. Its open mouth swallows the rain, directing it into a series of channels beneath your feet. When the thunder grumbles, you hear a deep, echoing thump from somewhere below, a response. The Maya didn't just watch the sky, they played it. You walk the length of the rainway and notice smaller carvings along its edge: frogs, birds, jaguars, all with open mouths turned toward the sky. Some scholars believe these were symbolic, meant to invoke rain deities. Others suggest they were practical, little resonating chambers that amplified the sound of falling water to announce the storm's arrival. You crouch beside one of the frog sculptures and listen. As the water hits its back, it trickles into a hollow chamber below, creating a slow, pulsing thup-thup that echoes upward like a heartbeat. It's oddly soothing, intimate, like the temple is breathing again. You take a step further and something sloshes near your boot. The rain has formed shallow pools between the carved tiles, and you can just make out a repeating symbol beneath the water, interlocking spirals with small dots at each turn. You've seen them before: the figurine, the shell ear glyph, the stone steps. The entire temple is one instrument. You realize it wasn't meant to be viewed, it was meant to be heard, at night during storms when moonlight filled the plaza and voices rose in echo to the skies. You close your eyes for a moment and try to picture it. The courtyard filled with glowing torches, dancers with flutes made of bone, priests blowing into conch shells that sang over the thunder, and all around them the sound of rain, falling not just as weather but as rhythm. A ritual of water. Some believe Maya ceremonies were strictly choreographed. Others argue they were more improvisational, tied to the natural shifts of the elements. You can't decide, but as the thunder rolls again, you hear a call-and response between sky and stone that feels very intentional. The snake gutter beside you suddenly gurgles, and a fresh stream of rainwater flows into a carved basin with grooves like a shell. The water spirals in and disappears underground with a low whoosh. You smile. That basin is tuned too. A tiny amphitheater fed by sky. You find a dry spot on a fallen pillar and sit cross-legged, just listening. The storm isn't harsh, just steady. The kind of rain that presses gently on your skin and never quite wants to stop. You pull out the clay figurine from earlier, the one with the spiral conch in its hand, and set it upright on the stone beside you. Its hollow back catches a bit of the wind and it lets out a soft tone, almost as if responding to the rain's rhythm. For a while you just sit there, rain above, stone below, breath beside. No talking, no questions, just listening. And when a bird calls out across the courtyard, its note somehow harmonizes with the water hitting the frogs, the basin, the roof tiles. You realize you're part of the song now, not just a visitor, an instrument. The rain fades as softly as it came, leaving behind a hush as thick as steam. The sky is still gray but warm, and the clouds now drift like heavy cotton across the canopy. You rise, the stone beneath you slick and mossy, and feel a magnetic pull back toward the inner sanctum of the temple. Not out of duty, but curiosity. Something inside is still echoing. You step carefully across the rain-darkened plaza, then back through the side corridor that loops around the central chamber. The walls here are smoother, more preserved, and painted. Faded reds, cracked blues, outlines in black that once told stories in glorious bursts of color. Your fingertips trace the scenes like braille. A mural stretches across the northern wall. You pause, it shows a woman. No crown, no throne, yet everyone in the scene seems to face her. She stands on a platform, arms raised, and in her right hand is a large, stylized conch shell. Her left hand is cupped to her ear, her mouth is open, she is listening. You lean closer and notice her hands are painted blue. You've seen her before in the clay figurine's gesture, in the spiral glyphs, and even in your own posture when the wind played the shell. This was the priestess, the sound keeper. No one remembers her name, her story isn't in textbooks, but she appears across temples and glyphs in this region, always mid-gesture, listening, holding, breathing. You mimic her now, lifting the shell from your satchel and pressing it to your ear. At first, nothing, just the quiet whoosh of your own pulse. Then softly, faintly a pattern, not a sound exactly, more like presence. Like standing near someone just out of view, someone who's humming to themselves while doing something mundane, sweeping or cooking or maybe grinding maize. It's disorienting, like memory and noise had a child and gave it lungs. You lower the shell and step backward toward the center of the mural. Behind you, another echo, not yours, curls through the air. You spin, but the corridor is empty. Okay, that's enough shell listening for now, but you do notice something else. At the base of the mural, carved along the platform beneath the priestess's feet, is a repeating spiral pattern, each one nested within another. And in the corner, a tiny, almost hidden mark, a coral fragment embedded in stone, white, ridged, faintly pink even under centuries of dust. It shines just a little differently than the other materials around it. You touch it. It's warm, again with the warmth, and smooth, as if it's been handled 1,000 times. You crouch for a better look. Embedded around the coral are tiny holes like flute finger pads or perforations in a whistle. And you realize this isn't just a decorative inlay, it's part of a device. A musical element built directly into the wall. You exhale across it. A high-pitched, wavering tone escapes like wind through a reed on the beach. You blow softer, it wavers lower, and that's when the wall itself answers. Somewhere behind the mural, a second tone replies deeper, like the hum of the ocean trapped in rock. The two sounds layer gently, forming a chord that doesn't just sing, it soothes. You sit again, take the shell, cup it back to your ear. Now the wind carries more, chanting, a pattern of 3 tones, then a pause, 3 tones, a pause, a song, a code. A memory. You think again of the woman in the mural, how she isn't playing the shell, she's listening, she didn't command, she received. The theory among certain fringe historians is that these shells weren't just instruments, they were receivers. Antennas for spiritual frequencies, conduits for ancestral knowledge. Most scholars scoff at this. The mainstream opinion is that they were ceremonial, symbolic, or simple instruments, but sitting here now, you're not so sure. The shell vibrates faintly in your hand, and the note behind the mural lingers, gentle, unwavering, as though it's waiting for a response. You hum low just to see what happens. The mural doesn't speak. The shell doesn't crack open to reveal ancient secrets, but the chamber seems to breathe again. The same hush you felt in the rain returns, now tinged with coral and dust. You gently touch the blue hands of the painted priestess. And she, of course, says nothing, but her gesture reminds you what to do, so you listen. The corridor ahead curves downward into a space that smells different, earthier, richer, touched with the sweet bitterness of something fermented. You follow your nose and find yourself stepping onto a tiled courtyard, now partially sunken and half swallowed by creeping vines and mud. Yet even through time's slow erosion, the layout remains clear. This was once a place of gathering. Feasting, perhaps, not the kind with grand banquets and golden plates, but something quieter, ceremonial, sacred. You kneel beside what looks like a long-abandoned hearth. Charred wood still clings to the edges of a circular pit. A few steps away lies a toppled bench, worn smooth by generations of backsides and elbows. You can imagine the laughter, the quiet stories shared between sips, and then you see them: bowls. Dozens arranged in a spiral around a central stone. Some are cracked, others intact. Made of thin clay, some lacquered with dark red pigment, others chalky with age. You pick one up, it fits perfectly in your palm. Smooth on the outside, rougher within, lined with what looks like a faded spiral mark, carved deep and then filled with ash or blackened resin. You give it a soft tap with your knuckle. It hums. No, really. The bowl gives off a barely there vibration, low and dry like a whisper from a forgotten throat. You tap another, a higher tone, another, a faint chime. It hits you, they're arranged by pitch. This was no ordinary feast. This was a sound circle. A ritual meal where vessels weren't just containers, they were instruments. Some scholars suspect these bowls were designed to resonate in tandem with chanting. Others propose they were filled with liquids that affected the tone: cacao, maize gruel, even sacred herbal brews. There are records suggesting that certain priestesses could tune a bowl by warming or chilling it first. Fringe theory? Maybe. But as you cradle one now, the idea doesn't seem so far-fetched. You lift one to your nose. A faint, bitter scent clings to it, not unpleasant, like dark chocolate ground with dried chilies and ancient stone. Cacao. You dip a finger into the residue still clinging to the inside, just a trace. Powdery and dry, but the scent is unmistakable. Your mind fills with images: women grinding cacao on stone slabs, steam rising from hot clay cups, shells struck together in rhythm, chants echoing through humid air. The bitter drink of gods, and you're sitting among its ghosts. You slide the bowls closer, curious now. You strike two together gently. They chime, discordant at first, then settling into a strange harmony. A few of the bowls still have tiny handles, made not for gripping but for threading. Strings, reeds, something that turned them into a kind of hanging chime. You're not sure, but you do find something unusual nestled in the central stone. You brush away leaves and thyme and reveal a shallow carved groove, just wide enough for a hand. A spiral again, deep, deliberate, ceremonial. You press your palm into it. Nothing happens, then warmth, again with the warmth, and then a hum. Soft, low, vibrating through the bowls around you like a pulse. It only lasts a moment. Maybe your own heartbeat echoing back, maybe just the bowls catching a breeze, but you smile anyway. Nearby something glints. You reach into the mud and pull out a small, broken bowl, spiral inside, one side cracked clean off. But unlike the others, this one has a hole in the center. You blow across it gently. A tone, thin and sweet, barely there. Another instrument disguised as a dish. You look up and imagine the scene centuries ago. People gathered under a canopy of woven leaves, sipping bitter cacao, listening to the stones sing with rain, humming into bowls, listening as their breath joined the temple's own. You pluck a single spiral-marked bowl from the dirt and set it in your satchel beside the figurine. You'll return it later, probably, but for now, something inside you wants to carry the sound a little farther. Because whatever this wasn't just dinner, this was communion, and you were just late enough to hear the echo. You carry the spiral-marked bowl with care, following a worn path lined with shell fragments that crunch softly beneath your sandals. The corridor ahead narrows again, but instead of growing darker, it brightens. Light spills in from a small opening above, casting sunbeams across the smoothest floor you've seen yet, crushed shell, bleached white and packed tight, glimmering faintly underfoot. You've entered a chamber that feels different from the others, quieter, somehow sacred without being grand. Its walls are high, almost perfectly circular, the sound here muffled in a way that soothes rather than silences. You speak a single word, and the sound vanishes almost instantly, absorbed by the shell floor, the thick air, the waiting hush. The smell is distinct, faintly smoky, with the ghost of incense and something earthy beneath it, like dried bark or crushed flowers. You breathe in deeper, it's calming, familiar though you can't say why. In the center of the room stands a pedestal, short, rectangular, with a wide lip like a music stand, but no manuscripts lie there. Instead, etched into the surface are a series of parallel lines and curves, not glyphs exactly, not words, sound waves, literally waveforms etched in stone like the graphs of voices frozen in time. You trail your finger along the ridges. Each curve dips, rises, plateaus. You have no idea what sound it represents. A chant, a cry, a laugh. On a small shelf beneath the pedestal lies an object wrapped in soft bark paper stained red. You unfold it carefully to reveal a reed flute, longer than your forearm, with 6 holes and a carved mouthpiece darkened with age and use. There's a faded stripe of red pigment spiraling down its body. You lift it, press it to your lips, and blow gently. A single clear note floats out, pure and trembling, echoing only slightly before the shelf floor swallows it whole. You try a second note, then a third. They come easily, as if the flute remembers what it's supposed to say. You notice something else. As you play, your breath stirs a gentle rustle from the walls, small suspended reeds or grasses hanging like wind chimes, each one tuned by knots or clay beads. Your playing barely nudges them, but they reply, tiny sounds in the silence like murmurs in a dream. This room is built for reverence, not performance, and you're not alone. No, no one's there, of course, not physically. But it's impossible to sit here, holding a flute someone else held centuries ago, standing on a floor crushed from the bones of 1,000 shells, without feeling watched, listened to. You sit at the pedestal and study the etched waveforms again. A small circular stone beside the stand shows a spiral and the same red dye as your flute. You place the instrument next to it. Click. It fits perfectly. This was its place. Scholars have argued about this chamber's purpose for decades. Some say it was a meditation room. Others believe it was where initiates learned sacred songs. A few even suggest it was a vault for recording voices, though how exactly has always been debated. You touch the edge of the pedestal again, where small carvings ring the stone like a border. You recognize a few: the shell, the spiral, the glyph for voice. And another, more obscure, a double spiral, one upside down, breath mirrored in echo. You play again, softly, just 3 notes, then wait, 1 beat, 2, silence, then faint and trembling a reply from behind the pedestal, the same 3 notes. Impossible. You stand and circle the stone. There's no one behind it, of course. Just another recessed wall carved with what looks like a vent or lattice. A shell pattern woven into stone. You try again, play your 3 notes, higher this time, silence, then a mimic, slower, slightly altered. Like it had to remember the shape of the sound. You smile. You don't need to know how it works. You just need to know that it does. Before you leave, you blow one last note, gentle, mid-pitched, steady. The room swallows it, the reeds stir. And from beneath your feet, the shell floor responds with a low, content sigh. You slip the flute back into the bark paper, tucking it into your satchel beside the figurine and bowl. Not to take forever, just to borrow. You'll bring them back, maybe, but for now you need their company because you have a staircase to find, and you think it might sing. The passage narrows once more, curling like a seashell inward toward something hidden. You follow a downward slope until the ceiling suddenly lifts and you step into open air. It's night now, not darkness though, just deep twilight with the moon hanging low like a quiet observer. The clouds have parted, revealing a sea of stars so dense it's hard to believe they ever went away. Moonlight slides down stone like water, illuminating a wide terrace of steps. And not just any steps, these are the singing stairs. You recognize them from your reading, though few records remain. Some claim the Maya built them as traps, designed to startle or confuse enemies with eerie sounds during the night. Others believed they were instruments of ceremony, each riser tuned to harmonize with specific chants or musical tones during lunar rituals. All of them underestimated the stairs. You place a foot on the first step. It hums. Not from your shoe or weight, it just responds, a tone deep and warm, almost imperceptible, but felt in your calves, your spine, your ribs. You take another step, a different note, then another. Each one sings slightly higher than the last, but it's not just pitch, it's feeling. One stair makes you feel grounded, the next curious, the third slightly wistful, like someone sighed and you walked through the residue. You glance back at the sky. The moon is directly above, casting long, soft shadows that stretch like ribbons down the steps. Each riser catches a sliver of light, and the stone glows in alternating patterns, almost like keys on a marimba. You descend slowly, and as you do, the steps begin to echo one another. One note triggers another, maybe due to your footsteps, maybe the wind, maybe some hidden air vents carved into the walls long ago. Whatever the reason, the result is musical. A low harmony dances around your ankles. You reach the midpoint of the staircase where the steps widen and flatten into a kind of landing. In its center lies a carved disc, half sun, half shell. You kneel and run your fingers over it. It's aligned, perfectly, not just to the moon above, but to the shadow line of the staircase itself. A lunar alignment marker. Many temples in Mesoamerica had solar alignments, but this was for the moon. Some rituals, historians speculate, were performed only on the full moon closest to the rainy season's end. Offerings of song and breath were made to honor lunar deities, especially Ixchel, the goddess of childbirth, weaving, and moonlight. You look up again. The wind is gentler here, soft and curved, like the breath of someone sleeping beside you. You place the clay figurine on the moonlit disc. It sits there easily, naturally, almost like it remembers this place. You take the reed flute, the one with the spiral stripe, and play the 3 notes you learned earlier in the shell chamber. The stairs answer, not all at once, but in a rippling wave of low tones, cascading upward and downward like water falling sideways. The sound is subtle, almost a whisper, but undeniably real. You blow once more, a longer note, the stone below vibrates, and that's when you realize you're not playing a staircase, you're standing inside a song. Not just a melody, but a structured ritual. The stairs were tuned to be walked slowly, deliberately, while music was played from the upper terraces. The combined effect, a living resonance that echoed through the jungle, heard only by those who walked with breath, rhythm, and silence in equal measure. You exhale slowly and sit. The night has deepened now. The stars overhead swirl gently through the clouds. In the far distance you hear a frog calling out, then another. The frogs, too, join the chorus, tiny, pulsing percussion in the temple's nocturnal composition. You rest your hand on the carved disc beside the figurine, and somewhere deep within the temple, through wall, air, and memory, you hear a soft, ascending chime. You smile, she heard you. You descend the last few steps slowly, as though each one is holding a breath you might disturb. The final stone hums faintly as your heel presses into it, and when your foot meets the earth again, you are standing at the base of the temple, facing a narrow passage carved beneath its foundation. A faint draft moves through the space, cool, damp, and tinged with minerals. You follow it into the shadows. The tunnel arches into a corridor lined with shell-studded stone. Not the smooth conches you saw earlier, but jagged fragments, some crushed, others carefully embedded in circular mosaics. Every few meters, there's a polished black stone set into the wall like an eye, reflecting only slivers of your lantern light. The silence grows thick, heavy, but not hostile, just waiting. Eventually you reach the heart of it, a burial chamber, small, simple, not gilded or grand, and yet it commands reverence. The walls here are rounded and lined entirely with spiral shells of all shapes and colors. The air feels suspended, as if gravity behaves differently here. At the center lies a stone sarcophagus, cracked open along one side, revealing the top rim of a faded textile bundle. Time has claimed the bones, but around the burial are offerings, tiny shell flutes, chipped figurines, crushed pigment pots, and one singular object resting atop the cloth. A conch, chipped, weathered, and unmistakably familiar. You reach for it, your fingers trembling slightly. It feels heavier than the one you've carried, not by weight but by presence. You lift it gently and press the open mouth to your lips. No sound. You try again, this time softer, still silence. But then, like breath exhaled through a dream, you hear it, not from the shell but from the walls around you. A single note, then another, then a shimmer of resonance through the chamber. The shells are responding, not loudly, not even musically. Just vibrating, as if remembering a conversation from long ago. You walk to one wall, holding the shell loosely, and whisper a word, anything. Doesn't matter what, the wall catches it, then sends it back, but not the same. Your voice returns slower, softer, rearranged. You whisper again, this time your name, a beat. Then the chamber replies, not with a name but with 3 notes. The same pattern you've heard before, echoing through the temple since the beginning. The echo that never left. You crouch and run your hand across the shell-lined floor. The shells aren't randomly placed. They're part of a spiral, a great spiral that starts at the tomb and radiates outward, like a message sent through time. Or a memory in motion. It dawns on you then. The cracked conch in your satchel, the one from the staircase, the one that sang with the wind on your first night here, it's a twin. You pull it out. Compare the two, similar shape, same etching along the edge. A pattern of dots around a spiral, but yours is chipped on the lip. The one in your hand is whole. You place them side by side on the stone. They harmonize, you don't even need to blow. Just their closeness, the breath of the room, the presence of memory, it's enough. One hums a low note, the other follows an octave higher. You sit with them a while, watching the moonlight drift across the chamber through a small hole in the ceiling. Dust floats in the beam like fireflies, and you finally understand what this chamber was: not a burial room, a memory vault. A place built to remember the sound of one person, their voice, their song, their breath, not just for mourners, but for the temple itself. A final gift. You rise, place the conch back on the burial wrappings, and gently press the cracked shell to your ear one last time. It doesn't sing, it sighs like it knows its time. You whisper again, this time not a word but a tone. The same three-note pattern, a farewell, and from the shell-lined wall behind you, like a mother answering a child's dream, you hear it. The temple sings back. You leave the chamber slowly, one foot after the other, careful not to break the silence that now feels like music. The path back curves gently through the base of the temple, and by the time you emerge again into the open air, the moon has drifted lower in the sky, still bright, still watchful. The jungle no longer hums with frogs and night birds. It's fallen quiet, as if the whole world paused while you were underground. You walk the long way around the temple, back to the front steps where you first found the embedded conch. It's still there, that same spiral shell, chipped and weathered, jutting from the wall like a memory refusing to be forgotten. You sit beside it. You pull out the items one by one. The reed flute with the red spiral, the clay figurine with the cupped hand, the cacao-scented bowl etched with tonal rings, and your chipped shell. Each has changed since you first found it, or maybe you've changed. You lay them all out before you, forming a rough semicircle like the ones you found in the old courtyard. The wind picks up softly again, curling around your ears with that same distant song. And then from the shell embedded beside you comes a familiar sound. Three notes, soft, so faint you almost miss them. It's the same call you heard in the burial vault. And this time you understand, the temple isn't saying goodbye. It's remembering you. You pick up the figurine, the one with the outstretched arm, and set it gently beside the embedded shell. You place the cacao bowl behind it, resting the reed flute across the rim. Last of all, you hold your chipped conch shell to your chest for a moment, then wedge it next to the embedded one side by side. The two shells, broken and whole, hum together in the wind, a small final note like a smile. You lean back on the steps, letting your eyes close. Above you, the stars ripple through the jungle canopy, and the moonlight catches the spiral carvings just so, reflecting a soft sheen over the stone. The air is thick with warmth but clean, like the breath after rain. You are no longer just a visitor, you are a verse in the temple's song. And even as you prepare to leave, as your body begins to stretch and ache from sleep, you know this place will keep singing. Not because of stone or shell, but because someone someday will listen again. Maybe it'll be centuries from now, maybe tomorrow. But when they arrive, they'll find echoes waiting, soft, spiraled, and familiar. You whisper one last time, "Thank you." And the wind responds with a faint three-note reply. The echo that remembered you. Now that our journey's come to a close, let the echoes fade behind you like gentle footsteps disappearing down a sandy path. Take a moment to feel where you are now, the softness of your sheets, the weight of your blanket, the stillness of your breath. Let your fingers relax, let your shoulders drop. You've been walking ancient stairways, tracing stone echoes, sipping sacred cacao and whispering into shells. No wonder your body's ready for sleep. Inhale slowly, hold it, exhale even slower. There you go. Let the moonlight from that long-forgotten temple flicker in your mind just for a few seconds more. Maybe you'll dream of that staircase again, each step a different note, the wind humming through coral walls, the whisper of a priestess who never spoke a word,